Quick introduction. So welcome everybody to the Tuesday session of Rail Nation DC. Brief overview of what's going on today. We're going to kick off immediately when I'm done here with our council business session with Doug Kerr and Ken Briers. We're going to have a quick video from Representative Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania right when we're done with this. And then I will come back at 1 o'clock for the first of our two big interactive workshops for the day, for whom the Zoom bell tolls. And then quick break, and then at 2:30 Eastern, Sean Jeans Gale will be kicking off a committee workshop. So without further ado, Doug Kerr.
Okay, am I?
Yes, go for it.
Am I going to be on the screen? Okay. Good afternoon and good morning. We welcome everyone to the much abbreviated Fall 21 Council Business Meeting. I am Doug Kerr. I was part of a committee to set the agenda for today's meeting. And all the council members have received multiple emails from me asking for input for today's agenda. And unfortunately, things didn't quite work out the way we had planned. But first, I want to thank my fellow committee members, Steve Mewson, Jim Tilley, Bruce Ashton, and Barry Green. All of us put in quite a bit of time and effort into this project, and they all deserve our special thanks. Our original plan was a packed 5-hour in-person meeting. And when we switched from in-person to Zoom, we looked at what we were trying to do and we just couldn't make it work over Zoom. But having an open meeting for all members and having multiple votes, having a lot of discussion, trying to arrange 40 to 50 people on Zoom, it became much too cumbersome. So we deferred almost everything to the next March meeting, which hopefully we can have in person in March. The bylaws do require that we appoint the Candidate Certification Committee and the fall council meeting of odd-numbered years. Well, that's this meeting. So we decided not to cancel a meeting completely, but that we would have a very short meeting so that we can appoint the CCC and also give Jim Matthews some time to give us a State of the Association presentation. Our bylaws also designate that the board chair chairs this meeting. And so we want to be in compliance with bylaws. And so I will pass the baton to our chairman of the board of directors, Ken Briers. Ken?
Can you mute?
Thank you, Doug. First thing I do is ask Cliff to establish a quorum, and I think he's working on that.
Thank you very much. Let me get back into gallery view real quick. Could everybody who is a council member please raise your hand? Lynn, use the raise your hand function.
Cliff, I have the count at 32.
I have the count. Yeah, I have the count at 32 plus Ken, myself, and Ken Briers, myself, and Ken Clifford, who are also on the council by virtue of that, plus Doug Kerr, who hasn't raised his hand. If we're not, I think we are comfortably over a third, which is our quorum requirement. So we have a quorum.
Mr. Secretary, the count just changed in Zoom, so it looks like you're there.
The count is at 38.
Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Secretary, I have the hands raised at 39. Permission to lower hands.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have sufficient. We have a quorum. I apologize. For technical reasons, we can't unmute. Ken Briers has also said that he's muted and he can't unmute, which is going to make this procedurally a very interesting exercise if Ken tries to mute himself for somebody else.
I'm unmuting him right now.
But we do have a quorum. So in the interest of managing traffic, I would
Wait a minute.
suggest.
Do you hear me?
We do now.
Yes, like we.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm getting a note says the host is not allowing people to unmute themselves. And it doesn't show any volume on my image when I talk, which is kind of strange. But if you hear me, I'll go ahead, okay?
Yeah, and why don't we go ahead and drop everybody's hands? I know there's a function to do that, just so that
Say
if
that a
somebody
little
actually wants to
slower
speak.
so I can understand you.
I was going to say, okay, I think we're manually dropping everybody's hands.
Okay,
So that people who so that if remaining raised hands should be people who actually want to speak, so that we actually know who wants to speak if somebody wants to say something.
all right. Is somebody gonna let me know when you're done that?
You can go
Yeah.
ahead now. You don't need to wait for the hands to go down.
Oh, okay.
And Mr. Chair, I'm going to raise an unforeseen technical glitch. Although I don't think there will be objections, I'm a bit concerned that if people can't communicate to the chat and they can't actually pipe up, it's going to be pretty hard if anybody wants to raise an objection to something.
The chat function is on now. It was held, so we could get attendance.
Okay, cool. All right, we got chat. That solves the issue.
All right, are you ready to go?
Let's roll.
I don't know where I am, but
We have 19 minutes, guys.
okay. All right, well, I'll be quick. Greetings to everyone participating in the conference, and a welcome to those who are not council members. As I did during Sunday's board meeting, I want to compliment Jim Matthews and his staff who continue to perform so well despite the adversity of the pandemic and the staff cuts we have imposed. We are hopeful that normal operations can resume soon as we continue to pursue our efforts to protect and expand rail passenger services. Our first order of business, and one order, I guess, is to confirm the members of the Candidate Certification Committee. The following 5 representatives have volunteered to serve again as the 2021 to 23 CCC. Malcolm Kenton of DC, Mike Morrison of Oregon, Steve Musit of Rhode Island, Rod Schneider of Kentucky, Michael Testman of Virginia. The council being tasked with appointing the CCC, I ask the council to appoint them by acclamation. Is there any opposition or intent to abstain? All right. Hearing none, the committee members are reappointed by acclamation. Congratulations, guys. I think you're all on here. Now I'd like to turn it over to Jim to describe the state of the association.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I recognize that we are very, very short on time. So I'm going to do my best to go through this very quickly. So that there is a little bit of time at the end if folks need it. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I hope everyone can see that. Just the status of the association. We'll go over this very quickly, as I said, but our policy program is working. We are delivering really historic gains. We're now full partners with congressional leaders in passenger rail policy. We're seeing incredible levels of investment that are poised to pass. There's still a lot of work to be done this week. It's literally taking place as we speak. It's why I was a little bit crushed this morning. There's a House-Senate bicameral negotiation that they're not calling a House-Senate conference right now to try to hammer out a compromise on reconciliation. So this is, we're right in the news, right in the middle of it. Our financial status, we are recovering. I'm not going to say we are recovered, we are recovering. We are basically on track for a break-even 2021 after a close to break-even 2020. Membership income continues to lag, and there are still some risks out there from COVID and other disruptions. And then I'm going to briefly update everybody on the McCallum estate. So first of all, very important wins. We aggressively right of Amtrak communities to passenger rail service in the face of what we saw as a clear and present danger to the viability of the national network. First, it was from wrong-headed leadership at Amtrak, and then from a once-in-a-generation pandemic. And so here we are today. There was $2 billion in emergency COVID funding, mandates to restore daily service, statements from the Congress that long-distance passenger rail is an essential part of the nation's transportation system, requirement to invest the capital improvements for the Southwest Chief, requirement that we could not use anything to discontinue any other routes, station agents on the way back, and congressional direction. This was an important one. Congressional direction to Amtrak to improve communication and collaboration with local partners and stakeholder groups like ours. We last year testified before the Congress twice to explain the cost of the 3 times a week cutbacks to Congress and the nation. We basically went on offense. In testimony to the House and the Senate, I told the Congress and the nation that there was going to be a multi-billion-dollar bomb dropped on so-called flyover country if we didn't do something to reverse it. In the end, we did not lose a single route. And I think that's incredibly important because we may well have lost routes if we had not been able to arrest the problems last year. So very high level, this staff, Sean Jeans Gale and the policy team and myself, we played a pivotal role in helping congressional committee staffs shape what has become the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That replaces the FAST Act as the vehicle to reauthorize surface transportation policy. And overall, this staff has been involved in more than 20 pieces of rail-related legislation over the past 2 years. A lot of the reforms that to Amtrak and to passenger rail that we got written into last year's FAST Act replacement, which was HR 2, which wound up getting punted to this next session. A lot of those things have found their way into the bill that is now under discussion, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. We have reforms restating Amtrak's mission to de-emphasize the profit motive, revamping the board, repealing the so-called MICA amendment on food and beverage. A whole bunch of really important reforms have been put into place, assuming that we can get this bill over the finish line. We are, as the football analogy goes, we're 4th and inches, but we're not there yet. This is the bill. This is HR 3684. This is when you hear the words the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That's what we're talking about. This subtitle is what was FAST Act replacement, which has now found its way subsumed into this bill. You'll see a lot of Amtrak reforms here: composition of the board of director, oversight of changes on long distance routes, improved oversight of Amtrak accounting, transparency, passenger experience enhancement, findings, mission, goals. Over several years, we've worked very hard with congressional representatives and senators to make an important point, and that is that Amtrak works for us. Amtrak is not a private company trying to maximize profits for its own ends. We taxpayers created it, we fund it, and we decide what it's for through our elected representatives. And this list shows you the emphasis that our elected representatives are putting on that oversight of Amtrak today. So here's a list of some of these reforms. Amending the mission and goals to emphasize its role in providing service to rural communities, recognizing the importance of long distance, encouraging Amtrak to maximize the benefits of federal investment as opposed to minimizing costs. That's a very important distinction. Revises the composition of Amtrak's board of directors, requires ticket agents at every station building that averages at least 40 passengers a day. There's increased oversight of changes to the long distance routes and other intercity services. That's incredibly important. We feel like that now kind of elevates the visibility of the long distance service to congressional oversight, which is terrific. Much greater level of detail on its spending has to be given to Congress. Tons of passenger experience enhancement work. Protecting Amtrak routes through rural communities, section 22210, prohibits Amtrak from discontinuing, reducing the frequency of, suspending, or substantially altering the route on any segment of any long distance route if Amtrak receives adequate funds for that route. So we played a key role in developing each of these reforms, working closely with the key staff in the House and the Senate to get these reforms put into law. And then, of course, there's the money. We spent years setting the stage for Congress to support spending like this, to reverse decades of neglect of passenger rail. And this sets us up for a very bright future. The columns there in orange represent the Jobs Act rail funding over that 5-year period between fiscal 22 and fiscal 26. Compare that to the blue boxes, which were the fiscal 17 through 21 actual figures. Those are figures, by the way, which we were really pleased with 5 years ago because they were themselves significant improvements over prior years. But look at where we are today. So overall, I think it's important to recognize that we've spurred loud bipartisan congressional criticism of the moves to cut daily service. We made 14,000 contacts with House and Senate offices. We wrote a bunch of legislation. Our House and Senate leaders, US DOT offices, regulatory agencies today all proactively seek our input. And there's also broad interest in the Congress and within government in our economic modeling capability to help make the case for passenger rail investment. And those cases are going to be made in the next year or so as new plans are put into place. Financial status, we are recovering, but we are fragile. We have met the council's pre-COVID mandate in 2019 to reverse financial losses, while also simultaneously extending our stature, our reach, our influence throughout the Congress, the executive branch, and regulatory bodies. But The risk of COVID-related economic dislocations is still there, and membership income continues to lag expectations. So this is a kind of a snapshot of sort of the path that we have been on. You can see that we're on a good path. Year to date, we're about $9,000 better than our revised annual budget when restricted expenses are removed. Revenue year to date is $8,000 behind the revised budget so far. So we've managed to keep hacking away at expenses to try to keep that together. But even when we revised our expectations downward, we're not meeting even that target on the membership side particularly. Summer and early fall, always our weakest months, just even in normal times. But that's exacerbated by some COVID-related disruptions. The management and our finance team, which includes our members. So we have Lynn Aldrich and Ken Clifford, Rich Vavramusser on that finance team with us, working closely with me and with John Z. Stone and with our accountants at YPTC and Chairman Ken Bryers. That we call 6. So this group of 6, we're projecting basically break even. We're looking right now at finishing 2021 somewhere around $0 to $5,000 in the black. All of that is very sensitive to perturbations, but right now that's kind of where it's tracking, is very rough. We'll call it break even, and that is a tremendous progress from where we were just 2 years ago. So I do want to point out that last year the fundraising efforts that John Z. Stone led for us helped us to repay previous investment drawdowns. We were able to reverse prior year losses, and we were able to come very close to breaking even despite the upheaval of the COVID crisis. And think about this for a minute, guys. There are there's the American Society of Association Executives, which manages these kinds of things. They report that more than 2/3 of American nonprofits had to draw down the reserve funds 50% or more to get through COVID, and a lot of them just went out of business. We repaid the investment fund during that period of time. We've had to make a lot of cuts to make that happen. The staff is 44% smaller than in 2019. There's no raises. I cut my own compensation. Actual declines are running even worse than the budget that we had projected for 2021. So really, we're continuing to rely on increased donations and contributions from larger entities in order to offset continued declines. On the McCallum estate, our aim is to wrap this up this year. As of today, our retained counsel is still finding previously undiscovered estate assets, which means that we can't finalize the estate, and collect the final amounts of money from the estate until all of those assets are accounted for. She's now anticipating closing out the estate, assessing the final fees, and making any final payments to us this winter. This winter could mean the end of this year. It could dribble into the beginning of next year. I'm really hoping for wrapping this up before the end of this year. The original plan was July, so there's still a possibility, but that's kind of where we are right now. Very briefly, I just want to hit this as hard as I can. Our active base of membership is nothing like the broad ridership of America's trains, and supporters really are our future. We need to think differently about what membership in this organization is, what it means. Diversity is an absolute must for our future. If you compare the makeup of our elected leadership as an association compared with Amtrak ridership, we look nothing like riding public, and we have to keep working hard to make our leadership and our elected representatives look like the ridership that we purport to represent. And that is the as fast as I can go to get this done and try to leave a minute or two. We have an absolute hard stop at 1 o'clock Eastern. So I'm probably only going to take one question, but I'll leave that to, I guess I'll leave that to Joe, are you managing questions, or is Ken managing questions? Ken,
Yeah,
we're chairing the meeting, so.
I am here. There's been a couple comments. Steve Strauss mentioning more effort on growing membership, but there has been no questions so far.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to yield to you. We have 3 more minutes left, and it's your meeting. So,
All right, at this point, I guess the meeting is adjourned.
does someone have to move to adjourn it?
Yeah, I guess so. We'll have a motion to adjourn.
I will move to adjourn the meeting.
Do I have a second?
Looked like Lynn seconded.
Multiple hands going up.
Pick one.
I guess we're all in agreement. Are there any abstentions or nays? Put those hands down. Let me see the, put those hands down. Let me see the nays. I'm assuming there are no nays. So meeting has come to a conclusion.